afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order. It's hard to believe it's the end of September, and we're certainly glad that all of you are here today. I would ask Trustee Dobson if he would lead us in a territorial acknowledgement, please.
We acknowledge that the land on which our school and district buildings are situated is a traditional, unceded, unsurrendered territory of the Algonquin people. We also recognize the enduring presence of all First Nation, Métis, and Inuit people on the land on which we gather here today.
Thank you very much. And if I could call on Trustee Doherty for the invocation.
May we who are assembled here have true understanding of the duties that are placed in our hands. We seek to have the wisdom to honor our obligations to Renfrew County District School Board students, families, staff, and communities. As trustees and administrators, we will work together to lead, guide, and support the vision to inspire, empower, and achieve.
Thank you very much. And I will go ahead with attendance. And I am here, Vice Chair Boland.
Here.
Trustee Dobson.
Here.
Trustee Doherty. Here. Trustee Gannett sends his regrets today. Trustee Kaiser.
Here.
Trustee Primo.
Here.
Trustee Rajamani is not here as yet. I thought she was coming. Trustee Reddy, not here as yet. Student Trustee Ding, I believe, is with us. Trustee Ding. Here. Good. And soon to be student trustee, Sydney Doherty. Here. Excellent, thank you. And for senior staff, Director Nimi. Here. Superintendent Barnes. Here. Superintendent Poirier. Here. Superintendent Smith. Here. Superintendent Kronwald.
Here.
And Superintendent Nickel.
Here.
Excellent. Good. All right. Thank you, everybody. I do need a motion to approve the agenda. I do have one addition. I have another letter, some letter correspondence. If you could just add a letter under that with regards to Rowan's Law. So we'll just add that in, and I'll speak to that at the end of the meeting, and it will be put in the package for you to see a bit later on. So could I have a motion, mover and a seconder to confirm the agenda for today's meeting? Trustee Dobson, thank you very much. Trustee Doherty, all those in favor of today's agenda? And that's carried. Thank you very much. So we're going to go ahead with the oath of office for our student trustee at this point in time. So I will turn that over to you, Director Nimi.
Thank you, Chair. We are pleased that we have Sydney Doherty joining us as our student trustee for the 2024-2025 school year. So we have a couple of documents that we need to go through with you, Sydney. So I'm going to go and see you since you have more space over there.
Good idea.
Yeah, and then we'll do a little picture. Connor, if you could help us with that, it'd be great.
And can I talk a little bit about Sydney while you're just over there?
Yeah, that would be great.
People who maybe haven't met Sydney before. Sydney's a grade 11 student at ADHS, so from the south part of the county. She's currently on student council, of course, as spirit minister. So that always sounds like an interesting task. So we need to know more about that. And I know that Sydney was on student senate last year. Were you on the year before as well? Oh, you weren't on student senate. That's right. You were not. You were amazing. You came in virtually and won the trustee position anyway. Sydney also volunteers at local charities and events, currently planning to attend university, depending on how things go the next couple of years. And she's very excited to become a trustee. So we're thrilled to have you with us as new student trustee. So we'll go ahead with that.
Thank you, Chair. So Sydney, what we need you to do is read this oath of office. And so you will just read this and then we'll both sign. Okay.
I, Sydney Doherty, do solemnly declare that I am not disqualified under any act of from being a student trustee at the Renfrew County District School Board. I will truly, faithfully, impartially, and to the best of my ability execute the office of student trustee, and that I have not and will not receive any payment or reward or promise thereof for the exercise of any partiality or malversation or other undue execution of the said office. And I will disclose of any pecuniary interest, direct or indirect, as required by and in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, declared before me at Pembroke, Ontario, in the County of Renfrew, this 24th day of September, 2024.
So you can. Nice signature.
It's different every time.
Okay, this one you don't have to read it loud. It's the code of conduct attestation. So I will let you read through it and then we'll both sign. Okay. Okay, it's official. You are now one of our student trustees. Congratulations. You're over here with the chair, okay?
And I think we have a few goodies for you. I'll just leave beside you on the table there, okay? Excellent.
Okay, stand here. Sure. You stand in the middle. There. You just find all these things.
All right, great.
Thank you. Congratulations. Thanks.
Okay. On to our agenda number 7. Do we have any declarations of conflict of interest today that needs to come forward?
I just want to say I don't have anything with today's agenda, but normally at the beginning of the year, I usually mention that I sit on a couple of boards that interact with the school board here. So I sit on the board of the Children's Garden, and they have a before and after school program at Highview and at Cathedral's Garden, we call them. And then I also sit on the board at the Phoenix Center. I just wanted to some new faces around the board today, so I just want to let everybody know that I do sit on those boards. Thank you.
Excellent. So these are great relationships to have as well. So thank you for sharing that. So approval of the minutes, as you can see on your agenda, we have a number of minutes that were circulated earlier to you by email. We have the June 18th, July the 9th special closed meeting, August the 8th special closed meeting, August the 29th special closed meeting, and September the 4th special closed meeting. Can't imagine what those were all about. But anyway, do I have a mover and a seconder for accepting the minutes of those meetings as circulated? Trustee Kaiser, thank you very much. And Trustee Reddy, all those in favor accepting the minutes of those meetings? Thank you very much. And that's carried. Excellent. Okay, on to our first presentation this afternoon, our strategic plan end of year update for 23-24. Which I'm sure can be quite challenging because some of the people around the table perhaps were not particularly here for 23 and 24, but we're glad to have them all here now. Absolutely. I'll turn it over to you, Kristen.
Thank you, Chair. We are pleased to bring you an update about our staff's work in operationalizing the strategic plan. As we know, our trustees set direction for staff through the strategic plan. And there are about 24 or 25 goals in the current strategic plan. And so we are going to be talking about how our work supports our vision, our mission, and our values in Renfrew County District School Board. And also we can see below that we have our vision of inspire, empower, achieve, and then we have 2 additional priorities of stewardship of resources and our ongoing commitment to measuring our progress. Again, this just highlights the 3 main priorities that are outlined in our vision, and our presentation today is going to be aligned with these priorities. So a reminder, last year in January and February, our senior team with your feedback selected 8 focus goals for the 2023-2024 school year. And we selected 2 focus goals under inspire, empower, and achieve, and then 1 goal under stewardship of resources and measuring our progress. So those were the 8 focus goals. We will actually highlight each of them for you today. So although we work towards the implementation of all the goals in the strategic plan, the presentation that we're bringing you today is about our work related to these 8 focus goals, because as you know, in February, when we did the mid-year update, it took about 45 minutes to update you on 8 goals. So we'd have to multiply that by 3 if we were going to talk about all 24 or 25 goals. So that's why we would prefer to give you an update on these 8. And that's what we're going to do today. So I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent Poirier, who's going to kick us off with focus goal number 1.
Here we go. So under focus goal number 1, we're looking at inspiring community engagement and partnerships. And so the goal is to collaborate constructively with our staff, but as well as the Federation and union partners, soliciting their input and supporting their efforts to serve the students in the organization. Further to what we had updated in February, we have had more collaboration with the union presidents on the following topics that are listed: the budget, the attendance support program, which is a new ministry PPM that will be working with them over the course of this year as well, but we've already sought their input. PPM 128, which is the one that Jenny so nicely outlined at our last meeting in regards to the cell phone use and vaping and the transportation situation. As in addition, there's been a schedule of bi-monthly meetings that have been arranged, and they'll take place during our exec council for the 24-25 school year. And if I said bi-weekly, I meant to say bi-monthly. Okay. Thank you.
And while this is a report on the actions and impact from Student Senate from February to June of 2024, I would like to say that Principal Rakowski and I have already started working with our Student Senate, Trustee Doherty and Trustee Ding. And we've actually identified 5 priorities for this year already, or they have, excuse me: strategic planning and student achievement, communication, sustainability, student mental health, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. And we look forward to bringing you updates of this during the year. During the second half of the 2023-2024 school year, the Student Senate began updating their Student Senate handbook in order to sustain effective student leadership at the system level with guidelines around meetings and developing initiatives. We're hoping to have this finalized with our Senate at the first meeting on October 17th. And you can see from the list there that these student-led initiatives from the Senate connect system programming such as mental health and well-being with students at school, through as an example, through the May Mental Health Week with activities such as the sidewalk chalk, yoga, crafts, and Green Shirt Day. In doing so, the Senate remains true to its mission to seek the diverse student voice and reflect it within student activities and intentions. This aligns with one of our overarching priorities of student engagement and well-being. And I'll turn it over now to Director.
Thank you, Superintendent Nicol. So those 2 focus goals that we just talked about were under the priority of Inspire. And now we're going to talk about the 2 focus goals that are under Empowering Equity and Well-being. And so focus goal number 3 was to organize opportunities for authentic, engaging learning for students, staff, and school communities related to anti-racism, diversity, equity, and inclusion, including professional learning for staff regarding bias awareness and critical consciousness. And so in February, we updated with the actions that we had taken from September until January. So these actions were taken from February until June of last school year. So we'd like to highlight 3 specific actions. One is that we provided professional learning around like Holocaust education and anti-Semitism to staff through a partnership with the Friends of Simon Wiesenthal organization. We also administered the staff demographics survey. And so we know that we had a staff demographic survey a few years ago. It was time for an update. And so that was administered last spring as well. And we have that data that we are now going to be unpacking and actioning. And finally, you did receive a presentation in June about the RCDSB Pride Week. It is a significant week in our CDSB. And in this case, it included both students and staff, and of special note, a partnership with the Indigenous education team with a focus on two-spirited Indigenous queer identity. The other action that we would like to highlight related to human rights, equity, and anti-oppression from last year is the implementation of priority days in the Renfrew County District School Board for the 2024-2025 school year. I did share this with you most likely through a weekly memo to give you an update. School boards across the province have been recognizing that, our school year calendar is based on Christian holidays, in particular Christmas, Easter, and we recognize that we have diversity across our district. And we want to also acknowledge holy days and other days that are of significance to people from different religious backgrounds and cultures. And as a result, our principal of equity at the time, Amy Johnson, did significant research about what other school boards have been doing in this area, consultation with community partners around what makes sense for our CDSB. And then as a result, developed a list of approximately, it's about a dozen priority days. And again, I'll just remind everyone, we have many days of significance. Some are holy days, some are, administrative professionals days or fire prevention week. Like we have many days, weeks, and months of significance. The priority days are a very small number of days that are the most significant across a variety of cultures and religions that we are protecting. And what that would mean is, for example, September 30th, which is coming up, the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation is one of our priority days. It means that we are not doing other types of activities on that day that do not align with the purpose of that day. So for example, the Terry Fox Walk would not happen on September 30th. We wouldn't have picture day. We're going to try to avoid having sports games and other, like a hot dog day, because we want students and families and staff to be able to honor the day and not feel like they're missing out on other opportunities at the school on those days. In June, we had also protected June 21st at the secondary level with exams, because going into this year, it's a priority day as well, as we sort of kicked off that approach last June by protecting that day and not having our secondary exams take place on June 21st, which is National Indigenous Peoples Day. This year is a soft launch, because the school year calendar was developed in consultation with RCCDSB and all of our union partners, and then approved by the ministry before we finalized our priority days for 2024, 2025. So we're saying this year is a soft launch. In other words, we're going to do our very best to protect the priority days. Going into the 2025, 2026 school year, we will have our priority days reconfirmed prior to establishing the school year calendar, our PA days and exam days and all those things. And so we will have a full implementation for the 2025, 2026 school year. So we're very proud about this action that we took in the second half of last year in support of human rights and equity. And now I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent Smith.
Okay, and I'm going to speak about focus goal number 4, which is to evolve the lead with care, create a responsive environment approach for mental health and wellness through strength-based relationships in alignment with the supporting student mental health framework. That's a bit of a mouthful. So speaking of which, one of the ways that we actually did evolve in the second half of the year was to really take a good look at and review and revise our lead with care framework, as well as our mental health mission and vision statements. And the previous version of our mission and vision, well, had many important aspects in response to our tiered mental health approach. It was on the wordier side and sort of difficult to remember. And we know the importance of a vision and mission statement is being able to guide us, and people know it and they understand it and we can refer back to it. So we really wanted to take some next steps and build on the familiarity and ease of the lead with care framework that we have had and is well known in our communities, and center it in the mission and vision. The other piece is that we felt that the previous versions that we had did not as accurately reflect our current model of service, just because things have evolved. And it wasn't as clear in regards to our intentional focus on identity affirming practices. So that's where we set to revise. And you can see a little bit on the screen here that our team, our mental health leadership team, worked to develop a renewed vision and engaged in a process to seek feedback from students, parents, school team members, and community partners. You can see that we have anchored it in the Lead with Care model. We've updated the language and in many ways strengthened our commitment in the language that we use, as well as building on how we affirm all students' identities, strengths, and needs. The feedback that we did receive told us that we were heading in the right direction. The leadership team will review all of that feedback and we'll finalize that before we move forward this year. And as we move forward, we will continue to monitor. And while this is just the statement of in our framework, represents the work that we're doing and will guide the work that we're doing. So in terms of that, as we move forward with the implementation, we will continue to look to many points of data to help us to identify, is this framework and the vision and mission that we've outlined having an impact? So looking at things like future school climate data, as well as reviewing attendance data, suspension data, demographic survey data. In addition, we monitor other data at the central level, such as, school support counselor, social worker caseloads, referrals to tier 2 and tier 3 supports. As part of our 2023 to 2026 three-year mental health strategy, our mental health leadership team recognized the need to develop students and staff advisory groups and opportunities for collaboration and shared leadership. So we just want to highlight a few of those for you. An example includes engagement that took place with Student Senate to both provide them with information as well as seek their input. And Superintendent Nicol also referenced the collaboration in terms of planning mental health leadership activities. Last year, we also piloted student advisory groups in our system, and this year we'll be expanding to have student advisory groups at each one of our secondary schools. We also want to highlight a very important student leadership project, and our student trustee, Grace Ding, had reached out to propose the development of some student-friendly resources to help students learn about supports available in our schools and across the district, and has developed a really amazing student-friendly resource. So we're very appreciative of that work, Grace. We also have implemented educator mental health advisory groups in the second half of the school year last year. And that will continue this year and build on and expand. And the focus really was on helping us to develop and decide on the key resources that we will be using from the system, mainly from School Mental Health Ontario, that would build on the new mandatory grade 7 and 8 modules that were implemented last year. And we will monitor the implementation of these resources. As an example, we can tell you that if 100% of our classrooms implemented those modules that would have been required to last year. And we will continue to, as we decide on what we're going to do across the system, have that monitoring plan. Another important piece for us that EQAO is now giving us a little bit of data because we're asking students about their awareness of mental health resources and supports. So that feedback that we get through that survey will also be able to help us know how we're doing in terms of is this implementation plan working? In terms of parental engagement, our mental health leader attended the PIC meeting last year and also engaged with them around renewing the vision and mission. And this year we are creating parent advisory groups to help continue to guide the mental health strategy. And just a couple of updates on services from the second half of the year. One piece is that we have established a partnership with Mashikawazi Menadow Foundation, and this partnership provides specialized services, expertise, and access to resources for Indigenous students and their families. So we're really proud of that partnership. We really think it's been a value add to our tiered model of supports. And in terms of enhancing identity affirming and equity guided support. In the second half of last year, we also partnered with Addiction Treatment Services to provide on-site services during the school day. And last year at 4 of our secondary schools on a bi-weekly basis. And we can see some of the data in terms of results. They differed by students, by individual students, but on the whole, we received very positive feedback on this program, and especially on students' ability to stay connected to and attending school while they were receiving services. So really, it was very, very positive. And based on that, we did prioritize funding to be able to expand the service to all 7 of our secondary schools this school year. So we'll continue to monitor for impact in terms of wise use of resources around that expansion. And I believe I'm going to turn things over to Superintendent Cromwell. Okay.
Okay, so we're working on focus goal number 5. So over the next few slides, it's going to highlight our collaborative learning partnerships, student engagement, professional learning, and resources that's connected to 3 aspects of this goal, which is 1, differentiated approach to student success, learning at the school and system levels that reflect key elements of the inspired learning framework. And the third part is authentic, engaging inquiries and tasks to explore big ideas in the curriculum. So the first one is a project. So the context of the project aims to bring educators and students out onto the land to make deep, meaningful connections to the math they lead about learning. So we had our numeracy coaches and education team work with groups of school to do the Math Through an Indigenous Lens project. What was important on this that connected back to our goal was connecting learning system levels and schools. So we had our Indigenous team, our numeracy coaches, Indigenous community partners, and we had our school educators from JK to grade 8 on this project. And they were engaging through authentic learning and experiential learning. And that also provided that different level of differentiated support that connected back to our goal. And the other level to that embedded that was using UDL approaches and also culturally responsive and relevant pedagogy that added another layer to that. So, and then our second bullet, so targeted grade 9 D stream professional development to support grade 9 D stream classrooms. So that was ongoing for the whole year. That tail end, the second part of the year really focused on our English classes. And that again connects back to providing that learning at school and system level to provide that differentiated support for our educators in the classroom. And so they're going in and they're provided, best practice design to reach every learner. And they're very focused on our grade 9 English teachers. And some of the feedback we got, we had one feedback from an English teacher. One takeaway I've had from today's session is a better understanding of effective strategies I can use in the classroom. And the second one was from a new teacher, so an NTIP educator, a more confident feeling that I can make use of the tools that were presented to change my teaching practice in a meaningful way. So we're providing these enriching to give them the tools and strategies to improve the learning in the classroom. And we're getting some feedback, some good feedback from the participants for our group. So this highlights student success through collaboration, professional learning, and student engagement. So in the beginning of the year, we had Peter Littledahl that came in that met with our instructional numeracy coaches on building thinking classroom. So we have a professional partnership that's coming in to enhance the first semester, and then second semester, second half of the year, we're leaning on the resource building thinking classrooms, which connects and enhances our ministry documents, which is high impact instructional practices in the classroom. So again, we're supporting the learning at the system level and in the school level through professional relationships with resources and bringing in someone that's an expert in the kind of research-based field that we can bring in as well. The second bullet talks, we provided secondary and elementary math teachers. We're provided an opportunity to attend Ontario Association of Math Education sessions, which again provided that level of learning for our system and our teachers. And again, it focused on reaching every learner. So providing that differentiated instruction to support our educators as well as our system teams working together. And the last one is just, student success through professional resources, partnerships, and engagement. So one is the reaching every learner. So as I just talked about with that sessions, we have a website that is providing teachers with ongoing resources so that they're able to go in and get some lessons that have been planned, been differentiated, and give them some strategies on there. And it's an ongoing resource that we provide, and it's grade specific to very specific classes. So it provides that really detailed support for our teachers. And again, we leaned on ministry documents. So that's our Renfrew County resource that we've built and we've owned and we update. So we're providing that. We've leaned on learning for all and high impact strategies. And then we've also partnership, which I'll highlight, is Marion Small. So Marion Small came in to get some very explicit teaching with our educators and our system leaders. And that really focused on the goal of really big ideas. So really she came in focusing on the big ideas. The goal was working on big ideas and adjusting to a question to understand it. And providing strategies for our teachers. So again, reinforcing the focus goal of working with our instructional coaches that are going out and supporting our system teams. And handing it over to Superintendent.
So the two documents you see up there, the one on student success and the other on transition guide. So I just wanted to highlight for a moment, just briefly, the some of the actions taken and then the impact for it in the second half of the year. So with respect to the student success handbook, during the second half of last school year, there were regular and ongoing sessions with the student success and guidance teachers to build capacity with regard to the principles and the practices of student success in secondary schools. It involved the schools working with their student success teams to take inventory of their existing practices in comparison to the practices as highlighted in the handbook. With respect to the transition guide, during the second half of the school year, the student success teams worked with schools serving the grades 7 to 12 students, and that remains ongoing with an emphasis on an asset lens approach. So with respect to an asset lens approach, you may recall years ago, report cards would show strengths, weaknesses, next steps, and of course now we know our report cards are simply strengths and next steps. So thinking of that in terms of the asset lens approach. And then, sorry, just with, the next one, thank you very much. So with the Entrepreneurs for Change, which is an initiative done through the Experiential Learning Handbook, and it really animates the principles and practices within that handbook. The first year of our Entrepreneurs for Change initiative resulted in 20 classes, learning about the UN Sustainable Goals, local charities, and business concepts as they created social enterprises to raise funds in support of the identified charities. The culmination was an initiative on May 10th, which saw a youth market successfully bring community members together to purchase products sold by our young entrepreneurs. And so the picture on the right here is taken in the spring of 2024 with a grade 7-8 class from Champlain using the kitchen facilities of Fellows to test recipes for their class cookbook. The cookbook was sold at various markets, including the RCDSB market, and raised funds for the grind. A teacher also commented that the visit to Fellows was not only an excellent use of the kitchen facilities, but also helped the students feel connected to the school, which they would attend the following year. Again, a key concept of the transition guide. And I would stop there. In fact, I would move on to the next slide. But in fact, I literally just got an email earlier today from one of the key people that was involved in this, Principal Burnett. And he just shared with me, including an attachment here, that there was a letter from the Grind thanking a junior classroom in Palmer Rapids for their positive impact on programming at the Grind as a direct result of the entrepreneurial initiative. And the quote from them was, "Your donation contributes significant to the ongoing provision of our services, and we cannot provide this without contributions from donors like yourself." And the student, as you can see from the data here, the students continue to excel in D-Stream courses with high success rates for obtaining credits. The credit recovery may be available on a case-by-case basis for those unsuccessful in obtaining their credits, contributing to higher success rates. Of note, you'll see the geography course code, the CGC 1D, and that's being replaced this year with CGC 1W, just as a note for that. In terms of technology and leveraging innovative technology, our concerted efforts towards this for our students optimize students' ability to develop global competencies and transferable skills, develop critical thinking and problem-solving skills, empowerment to learn at their own pace, and enhancing their inspired learning journey. And while this slide is familiar to you, you may recall this from the mid-year report. Of note on here is that we are estimating that moving forward, that for new device deployments, it will be approximately $300,000 annually for that. And that would be with respect to incoming grade 7 students, as well as new enrollments or new registration. These charts have been updated. Again, you may recall from the mid-year strategic report that the data table, if you will, on the left was sort of the focus point, and it would have obviously just gone till January. At that point, they would have said that and it was reported that there was a 70% increase in devices, but there was a 38% decrease in terms of repairs. So it was seen as somewhat celebratory, but of course it's early data for that. So I'll unpack that for you right now. So these charts have been updated. You'll see that there's an increased workload, which is seen on the right. So the blue would obviously be the number of tickets or the work requests, if you will, from last year. And the orange, of course, would be for this current year. And with increased amount of devices in the student hands, there has been an increase in broken devices or maintenance and repair requests as the year unfolds. The current review of the one-to-one project shows a spike in break or fix requests for devices during the second half of the last school year. We anticipate that this would become the new elevated state going forward. Our ICT manager has been consulting with other school boards approach around their device and repairs strategies to ensure availability to students and fiscal sustainability. Director Nemi and I will be meeting with him in the near future to review his research and to determine next steps. And lastly, EDSB is coming. And so with that, and we're quite excited about that, but with that, of course, there are challenges to make sure that, because it is quite a robust platform, to make sure that we have a strategic and comprehensive rollout. So in terms of rolling it out, we are starting just with it being in terms of communication. We know that attendance is a feature for it. We know also as a portal that it would be able to share documents with home, but we're doing it one step at a time. In fact, just today I was meeting with, we have a subcommittee as well. So just coming up with, in terms of a time to be able to allow all schools to be able to access the platform, to be able to, well, for lack of a better word, play with it before being able to communicate with the parents. So making sure that everyone feels comfortable with it. Our IT department has been working very closely, not only with EDSB, the company obviously where we have the platform, but also reaching out to early adopters of the EDSB platform. In other words, people that have already gone through the trials and tribulations that we currently are, to say what worked, what didn't work. It's sort of that whole idea of hindsight is insight, and how would you move forward? And one of the key things that they emphasized was to go slow moving forward. And the reason for that, and I've lived it in a different initiative in another board, was that by moving too quickly, sometimes there can be errors and omissions and problems, and therefore it's not as user friendly. And once it becomes user friendly, there's a sense of disengagement that can happen with the platform itself. So we're hoping we have a message that will be sent out to all educators, office staff, as well as administrators, to say that you'll be able to get on the platform shortly, to be able to play with it, work with it, before we actually share it out with the parents for communication purposes. And I believe at this point, I'm turning it over to Superintendent Barnes.
Superintendent Nicol. So stewardship of resources, as you may recall from one of the first slides, that's one of our foundational pieces upon which everything lies. And I'm going to speak to that focus goal number 7, which was the digitization of records management system for schools and central departments in order to ensure all records are categorized and stored electronically, including historical records. As we look to the work that has been done from February to pretty much over the summer, we have completed a needs assessment, and this was done, you may recall, ThinkDocs was the vendor that was selected. And so they came in and spent a lot of time with our central department folks and did a needs assessment and gave us a little bit of a plan for the future, the near future. Department representatives were picked. We are calling them sort of change champions, the people who are eager and keen to get this going and who can really test the system, and we can do that learning and how to make it work for our organization. And these folks have all done not just the initial training, but I think they've done level 2 or 3 training as well. So that all happened, I believe, in the spring before the end of June. Where we're at now in the ongoing stage and Dawn is completing a survey of comparable school boards, looking at boards that are about similar size and nature, just to see how they're tackling this issue just because we try not to do these things on our own, but we lean on our neighbors and say, what's working for you and what were your challenges? And then that's going to come to exec and we're going to have a discussion. We've got new faces around the table. And so we're going to have a discussion and really develop that scope and next steps, which will tell us where we'll go from there. And I'm going to hand it off to Superintendent Smith, I believe.
Yes. I'm going to speak about our last focus goal number 8, which is connected to measurement of progress. So focus goal number 8 is the implementation of key priority areas of the Better Schools and Outcomes Act, or otherwise known as Bill 98, as well as our development of strategy to support school improvement planning. So as you will remember, last year we completed our first version of a student achievement plan, which is a requirement for all school boards in the province of Ontario now. And it does replace board improvement plans of the past. And so every school district is working on these same 3 priorities and these same 5 goals. So one of the most beneficial aspects of engaging in this work last year that we found was the process of the required consultation, which we just came to value so much because there's a requirement to consult with partners twice a year. So last spring, we had consultation with SEAC, with IAC, with Student Senate, as well as our principal and vice principal at our leadership team meetings. And this year, we will continue and expand that consultation. But through that consultation, we have settled on the addition of 2 indicators related to each one of those required goals. So it's not mandatory that we have additional indicators, but we really felt that we wanted to be able to add additional indicators that would guide our work as a district. And while I don't have time to fully explore each of these indicators with you, we do feel confident that they center many important aspects of the strategic plan, as well as priorities of the Ministry of Education. In regards to school improvement planning, we had told you partway through the year last year that over the course of last year, we engaged in a system-wide inquiry to look at school improvement planning as things had been a little bit on hold post-COVID. And so over the course of the year, we had an inquiry centered around this question. So thinking about what our process would be so that we're supporting growth and meaningful and equitable outcomes for every learner. So what would school improvement planning be like in 2024 that would lead us towards that end result? And part of this was thinking as well with the new required SAP, or the Student Achievement Plan, how does our SIP align with our SAP? And so what do we need to do differently now that we have both of those pieces in place? So we maintain emphasis on reaching every learner and also centered what do we need to do differently to ensure that we're really not operating off of our assumptions or student needs, but we are using data, we're using data effectively, and also we're expanding the type of data that we give value to. So including what we learn from the voices of our students and our families and our communities and centering it in that work. So by the end of the school year last year, we have completed the first draft of our new guide to school improvement planning, and now we're working with that new guide. So schools are going to be using this guide to launch back into the work of school improvement planning over the course of this year. And we're going to learn and adapt as we go. We're going to, we're still thinking things through, and we're going to work through it. And we may make some changes over the course of the year or at the end of the year as we look back. But this work will be a big focus for our leadership team meetings this year. Data literacy will also be a big focus for us in conjunction with this. And we're working towards developing tools that will help our schools with this piece, so they will have data that they need more readily at their fingertips that's updated in a timely manner. Just highlighting one of the pieces that we did develop as part of this guide is a revised professional learning cycle. And each stage, we're really proud of this piece, so I want to highlight it. Each stage has guiding questions that help facilitate the process that schools can use. So again, we'll be working on spending time each month supporting how we work with this new cycle. And as the SIP cycle, the school improvement planning cycle and the school improvement planning guide does align with the student achievement plan. So the SIP and the SAP work together. One of the ways that we will monitor the impact of the SIP work is by paying close attention to all of the indicators that are connected to the student achievement plan. Okay, I'll turn it over to Director Navy to close.
Thank you. So that was a very succinct summary of the work that has been done in service of 8 focus goals from the current strategic plan that we worked on during the 2023-2024 school year. And I would like to say our team of 6 presented to you, but the work really represents the work of many, many staff. And it's so important to acknowledge all of the work that they have done in support of the goals that you set out in the strategic plan. So we want to express that appreciation to our staff. For the 2024-2025 school year, we are in the process of reviewing the strategic plan and selecting the 8 focus goals for this year. And last year, you completed a survey that gave us input into those focus goals. So we have some draft focus goals. Just we've had a little bit of a different start to the school year. So we're a little bit delayed in finalizing those, but we are going to bring those to you in October, along with the staff work plan for the strategic plan. So the staff work plan will show our actions that are planned for all of the goals in the strat plan, but in there, we will highlight the focus goals so that you can anticipate what we will be reporting on in February and September for this school year. And so we do appreciate your feedback that went into highlighting or selecting the focus goals for this year. And my prediction is that some will remain from last year because they're so important, and then some will be different. So more on that in October. Thank you.
Okay, great. Any questions, comments around the table? Yes.
I just wanted to mention that I really like the CARE model. What I've seen there is something I haven't seen a lot of in the past, which is removing the stigmatism. And I think that's really important and something that needs to be focused on. So thank you.
Other questions, comments from anybody?
Yeah, I mean, as Kristen said, so many people involved in this, right? And you can have so many questions, but I just narrowed it down to just 3.
That's kind of you.
It's multi-parts to it.
Okay.
So at the very beginning, it's probably from the last report, but it talked about phone and vaping. So I just want to know how it's going in the schools, because like I hear it on CBC, where they have, in some schools, they have a little sensor in all the washrooms that goes right to the principal's phone. Right, so for some principals, it's just vibrating all the time and just running through all the washrooms, and in other cases, it's pretty reasonable. So I just want to know how it's going here with the phone and the vaping.
All reports, you can add in as well, but all reports right now are actually really positive. We have not heard concerns coming from our schools or from families, that it seems to be well received. We've heard comments around students even expressing a sense of relief around their ability to be able to focus and just removing that distraction. And it was interesting because Lisa Riviere, our mental health leader, and I just had a call with our school Mental Health Ontario coach this afternoon. We were talking about this too, and she said she's hearing similar things from across the province, that it just is really having very positive reviews. And we haven't heard of an escalation really in issues around vaping. We will pay attention to, the suspension reports and all those pieces that we get, and we will review with our school principals when we meet with them next week as well, just in case we're missing anything. But on the whole, we're hearing good things.
That's good. So it's nice to know, especially for the phones, because the students are so addicted to them. So nice to hear. Number 2 or 3. All right,
Go for it.
So we're a few years into the streaming of grade 9. I know you had mentioned it and you had some percentages there. I just wanted to reiterate how it's going, and do we have any plans to go to like grade 10 to just stream all of like high school?
So perhaps I'll start and I'll turn it over to Superintendent Nickel. I would say the data is showing that we are seeing a lot of success with pass rates for grade 9. And so what I would say is that sometimes pass rates don't tell the full story. And what we also need to look at is credit accumulation data. And so as we get our data dashboard up and going, where we have real-time data, board-wide and by school, we will be able to look at the percentage of students that are on track with credit accumulation by grade, and also be able to look at specific groups that are identified within our student information system. So for example, students with special education needs, historically, there's been a gap, right, with credit accumulation. And so what I would say is the data looks really good for pass rates, but it doesn't always tell the full story. And so I would say we're cautiously optimistic But we also have work to do. We still have more work to do around how do we teach a group of students with more diverse needs in one classroom. So there's more learning that's needed around that as well. But we're moving in the right direction.
Supports for the grade 9 teachers as well, like more EAs.
Well, that's not necessarily the case, but more support from a professional development perspective in terms of how to differentiate the learning and teaching that's happening in the classroom. But I'll turn it over to Superintendent Nick to see if there's anything you want to add.
Sure, just a few things to reiterate again, seeing the data up there, it's again, one piece of data, and we can define success different ways, be it credit accumulation, just being able to pass or fail. But in addition to that, though, being the best version of themselves. And as an example, you could have a student that the year before would could have very different marks, let's just say, than the next year. I think it really speaks to one of the documents that we showed up there, the transition guide, which is really, it was a grassroots initiative in the sense that we want to make sure every transition is successful, not only from grade to grade, but also school to school or division to division. And we recognize that there's a significant change that can occur when we move from, say, grade 8 to grade 9. And how do we help those students with that transition? And part of it, you're right, absolutely. There's a human resource component too. Part of the human resource component is not, it could include educational assistance, but it can also include having dialogue with the elementary team that, quite frankly, elementary teachers they're all de-streamed, right, in terms of their classes. And then moving into the high school and being able to share some of that effective practice with the secondary teachers. But in addition to that, though, having the secondary teachers being able to provide feedback to the elementary folks as well, to be able to say, these are the things that are expected, because it is different from year to year. So I think both groups, if you will, being able to share that feedback also leads to the success too. And to Director Nimi's report, remarks, I think that's part of how we can unpack this moving forward with the transition guide.
Right. And with the transition guide, right? So just again, where I mentioned for our childcare centers, right? So our biggest issue with the children is just basic transitions, right? I mean, going from grade 8 to grade 9, that's a huge transition. So, coming out with these frameworks and, and having the grade 8s going, to the high school, to the cooking class, right? And right. So they become familiar with it. So yeah, I like the idea of that transition. Anything that we can help the kids through any kind of transition really helps them.
I'll speak to the second part of your question, which was, are we looking at de-streaming grade 10, 11, 12? What I would share is that some boards sort of got out ahead of that and started doing that for grade 10 in particular. And then the ministry put out a directive saying, do not de-stream grade 10 and beyond. And so there wasn't a very clear directive that came from the ministry telling school boards to not do it. So we do not have any intention of de-streaming grades where the ministry has not provided curriculum to do so. That being said, in some of our schools, we have combined classes. So for example, we might have a school in our district where you might have grade 10 academic and grade 10 applied science in the same class at the same time. And so the students are in the same room at the same time. They're almost receiving a de-streamed approach because those two curricula are very similar in nature. And they might receive a de-streamed approach, but there might be some slight differences. But also it helps them maybe find their pathway within the classroom. So there are sometimes some benefits of combining, there's some drawbacks too. But sometimes for class size reasons, timetabling reasons, they're combined. So it's kind of, it's similar to de-streaming, but we've been directed to not de-stream from grade 10 up.
It's almost like you're defeating the purpose of de-streaming grade 9, only to, continue on, like we're going to postpone it again. And so we're going to have you de-streamed in grade 10, right?
Yeah, I think I'll just respond to that. I think part of it is that my understanding is we were the last province in Canada that was streaming in grade 9 at such a young age. Because ultimately, eventually the students do take a pathway towards the workplace, college or university or an apprenticeship. And so eventually the courses do become streamed for that purpose, because the course that they need to go into the workplace for math may not be the same that they need to go into a university engineering program. So eventually the programming does need to be streamed for that reason. but we were streaming at a very young age, which closes doors too early. And also that grade 8 to grade 9 transition is such a key period of time. The research, and Dr. Lillidahl says, the more you can keep grade 9 like grade 8, the more successful students will be long-term. So keeping grade 9 looking like grade 8, where they are not streamed, is the way to go. But eventually, you know, to get to the post-secondary pathway, I think many people would argue that at least grade 11 and 12 needs to be streamed so that it's tailored to their path.
Joan, for, you know, where it talks about going from grade 8 to grade 9. So for our JK through 12 schools, is the transition like a little easier when they go from, you know, grade 8 to grade 9 as compared to, say, at Champlain or Highview going to Fellows?
I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent Smith, because she has 2 K to 12 schools in her.
I would say anecdotally, they have more opportunities sometimes for transition type activities, just being in the same building. But I would say that even when they're not in the same building, they still find ways to be able to make those key pieces happen. But there are some advantages to having one staff in one building and being able to share pieces of transition information more easily and have activities. But in terms of a change in impact or a change in success, I don't believe so.
Last
Final question, okay.
Those are some parts to it, right? Yeah. So you talk about like reaching every learner. So how have we included the parents or caregivers in that, right? You know, normally to have a successful student, you need to have, you know, support system around them. One of the biggest supports is parents or caregivers. So how have we incorporated that idea into reaching every learner, like success for all the students?
I can speak to one piece if you'd like.
But I think the starting point is like, that starts at the school with strong communication, right? Really that communication home of what's happening in the classroom, what's happening with that, like with the addition of ETSB, right? Having another communication aspect and you can share things out at home creates that level of, you know, this is happening in classroom, inviting them out, getting to know what's going on. So that's a key aspect of it, is really bringing the parents into that through school council, finding out information through there as well, is key aspects of connecting that and reaching it. You know, the ongoing communication and with assessment and meeting with parents, really leveraging that input from parents happens at a school level on I would say a pretty regular basis. You know, when you're either sitting through an IPRC meeting or reviewing an IEP with parents, or just providing feedback on reporting times, or just providing that weekly newsletter home, provides that ongoing communication with parents that keeps them in the loop, and then they can reach out and dialogue specific to connecting as well. So.
Thanks.
Trustee Regimani.
I'm very impressed. Thank you very much for all the hard work. I'm thinking about the education system back in India and here, and comparing, oh, wow, that's a lot of work. And in the classroom or in the school, we didn't have so many streams like this, and one curriculum, one thing. And this is really great. I'm really impressed. A lot of work, and whoever was involved in making this happen, kudos to everybody.
Good, thank you.
Very good.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, I just got 2 quick ones. I'm just thinking about the Entrepreneurs for Change program. That was a great program last year. Is it going to happen again this year?
That's certainly the hope. That's
That's
what
the
we
hope,
want.
yeah.
Yes.
It
And
was-
in
it
fact,
was-
that was part of it when I had been in correspondence with Principal Burnett, and he certainly is very hopeful that it can continue, that it will continue. And certainly he was a big part of sharing some of that information with me, and certainly we could see the impact.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was great. Really enjoyed that one. The other, I mean, thank you for all the information. It was really helpful to kind of remind us too about, you know, particularly our focus goals, because there are a lot that we can't absorb all of that. So 8's good for me. Anyway. I love to hear that the EdSpeak is coming. I know we've been talking about that for a little while, so that'll be exciting to see how that actually looks. So hopefully, once that gets up and going, maybe you can do a little demo for us, some meeting, and just to kind of give us a sense of what will be available for parents and for staff, obviously, as well. And my sense is, and I'm happy to hear that, is that we're really focusing a lot more on data than we ever have. And I think we knew we had to, and we must, and we will, and it's just a matter of how to best gather that data that we know will be accurate and most helpful, and also to understand it and interpret it properly, right? Because you can interpret data lots of different ways sometimes. So I really appreciate all the work that's gone into that as well. Okay, so unless there are any other comments or questions, thank you for that, for everybody. That was great, great update for us, that's for sure. Lots of great work that has gone on and will continue to go on, I'm quite sure. Okay, Director's monthly report. So I'll turn it over to you, Kristen.
Thank you, Chair. So you received the report in your package. I'm not going to read every section to you. I will just give some highlights. So the first section was around the revisions to the French as a Second Language programming last spring. We advised you of 3 main changes to FSL programming. They're outlined there. We went with 50-50 model across all of our schools for consistency and also wise uses of our resources in terms of efficient use of our FSL staff. We extended early French immersion to Mackenzie Community School and Highview Public School. And we also are blending students in the core French program with students in extended French or French immersion programming for the English, the subjects that are taught in English during that 50% of the day. Those were the 3 big changes that we decided on in the spring. We have implemented all 3 changes for this school year. And so far, anecdotally, the feedback has been very positive. And what we will do it as a future committees meeting, we will bring an FSL update that will focus on the implementation of these 3 pieces and give you more specific information. As well, we do have a ministry FSL plan that we will give you information about as well. Okay. Second item, implementation of standing collaboration meetings with Executive Council. Superintendent Poirier alluded to this during her introduction of Focus Goal number 1. We have been very committed to seeking feedback, co-planning, and discussing items of common interest with a variety of partners that we work with in our education community. Specifically, we've been working closely with principal and vice principal representatives who represent the whole group, our 4 senior managers. We also are going to have meetings with those 2 groups combined. And then as Superintendent Poirier mentioned, we've been meeting with our union presidents. So last year we dabbled in it. It was sort of a little bit ad hoc. But this year what we've done is we've come up with a schedule of bi-monthly meetings, as you can see outlined in the report. And it's a co-constructed agenda. The groups have the agenda like now for the whole year, and they can add items that they want to talk to us about. And we add items that we want to seek their feedback about or work on with them. And Superintendent Poirier already gave some examples of what we've done with the union presidents. We're looking forward to continuing to work with them. And last year with principals and vice principals, a couple of topics that we worked on were budget as well. And also revisioning the leadership meetings, which is the next item in this report. So during my entry chats, when I first arrived in our CDSB, just remind everyone, not everyone was here. I completed around 85 entry chats or so with a variety of different members of our educational community, including yourselves. And when I met with the principals and vice principals, I did receive some feedback that they really thought that we should complete a review of our leadership meetings in terms of from a frequency perspective, structure, and content. And so we worked with our principal and vice principal reps, but we also worked with the whole group. We administered surveys, we had lots of dialogue, collaboration, shared the data back with them, got more feedback, and then we developed a plan for the 2024-2025 school year. Overall, we've reduced the principal and vice principal meetings by about 40% for this school year. We're going to give this model a try and get feedback again. Part of it is around fiscal responsibility. The other issue is our data was showing that our principals and vice principals were out of our schools quite a bit, because not only are they out for this, but they're out because they support us in a lot of other work as well. And so we know that the principals and vice principals are the leaders in the school, and it's so important for them to be in their schools meeting. That's their number one, that has to be their number one priority. And yet we do value them in terms of all the other work that they do with us. So we have to find the right balance. And so that's why we've decided on this model for this year. The next item in the report is staff training with Marion Thompson Howell. Trustees and executive council engaged in professional learning with Marion last spring around governance, but also governance and operations, and how those two, she calls it two sides of the same coin, work together, and how staff, we have a role to play in supporting trustees and being successful in their roles. And what came to light for us was when we worked together and dissected staff reports last year, we thought, well, we have staff who help us write our reports, because they're doing a lot of the work, right? Like they're the ones doing implementing a lot of this work, and so they sometimes will help us write reports. So we wanted them to have that training, because if they're creating a first draft of a report for us and they don't understand what we learned last spring, then they're still going to continue to write the reports in the same way. Which means then they don't understand why we're revising them. So yesterday we brought together all of our central principals, senior managers, and our administrative assistants alongside executive council engaged in 2 hours of professional learning with Marion. She was virtual, and feedback's been positive. I think there were some aha moments around, oh, that's why you want the report written that way, that type of thing. So over time, we hope that you will see that the reports will be less extremely detailed around all the nitty gritty around what's happening in math or Indigenous education, but more higher level that helps you in your roles. And I know I've shared with you many times that, and I've shared with Exec Council that I think that what's important is that we are helping you understand our decision-making that's related to operations. And so, for example, the report that former Superintendent Cousineau brought in June around the selection of the parent portal, the report clearly outlined the criteria that were used to select EDSB. We didn't get into all the details around EDSB, but the report explained to you the decision-making that staff engaged in. Same thing with budget, right? Every time we brought a report about budget, we listed all the criteria and the thinking that went into our decisions around budget, but not all the specific details. So our goal is to instill confidence in you, of us, by writing staff reports that give you that high level information that you need in your roles. We had an informal PIC meeting on September 9th. I wanted to highlight that in the report because it was important given our disruption to transportation services. And so the chair of PIC, Danya, organized this meeting. I know that Trustee Kaiser and Trustee Primo were in attendance, and we had staff present. We had some parent reps present, and it was very, very good dialogue around the experiences that are happening at the school level. We provided an update at that time around where we were at that time, and I know there's a report later coming with more current information around that. But I just wanted to highlight the importance the fact that we did have that informal PIC meeting early in the school year. We did have a flag raising ceremony yesterday to honor the National Week for Truth and Reconciliation, which is this week, and then also Orange Shirt Day, which is on Monday, September 30th. Unfortunately, I was taken away for something else that was pressing, as well as Superintendent Barnes, but I know that many staff were present, as well as I think at least one trustee, maybe a few more, not sure. And but what I wanted to say about that is that, that particular action could be viewed as performative, like kind of superficial, if it's not followed up with actual actions that commit to truth and reconciliation in our CDSB. And so we want to do that to honor the week, but we have to be committed to truth and reconciliation 365 days of the year, and also follow up those types of actions with professional learning. And so Superintendent Cronwald and Principal Nelson are supporting our board office staff with some resources to like if they participated in the flag raising, we want to sort of follow up with, and here are some resources to support your learning, your ongoing learning related to our shared history and Indigenous rights. That's my,
Okay. Any questions, comments? Or, Director Amy? I was interested in hearing the fact that, that you did meet again with Marion Thompson Howell, and, I think that, for us as trustees, it really does make a difference depending on how the report comes to us, so that we are more likely to ask the questions at the appropriate level, because, you know, if you give us a lot of detail, we really just want more. So, so I really much appreciate you kind of refocusing and rethinking them. I mean, it will certainly make a difference, I think, for all of us. Not only in better understanding, but also probably in saving time as well. So there's nothing wrong with that, right? So thank you for that. Okay. Where are we at? Okay, so we were on to staff reports to the board, and look at that timeliness. Look at that. We are right on that particular topic. And I'll turn it over to you, I guess, Superintendent Barnes, to introduce this topic, if you would, please.
Thank you, and welcome to Bill Murray, Manager of Facilities. In taking in that training yesterday, perhaps as we move forward, we may do this differently in the future, but this is what we're used to doing. And I know that the facilities folks accomplish a great deal of work at our sites throughout the summer. And so it's a nice opportunity to recognize the work that our own staff does, as well as the project management and our local or otherwise contractors, to get that work done in our schools. And as Bill is setting up there, he's got just maybe some pictures and just a verbal description highlighting some of those big projects.
I just want to make sure my microphone is disconnected.
Are you able to connect to the screen? We do have a couple of folks online.
It's joining.
Student trustee Grace Sting and trustee Dave Kaiser are online as well. There you go.
Okay, so thank you very much for the introduction. And yes, perhaps my training should have come a little bit earlier than yesterday. But I will try and make the connection between the strategic plan and the work that we undertake every year in facilities, because those two pieces should definitely be aligned. So I will try and make sure that those connections are obvious. Expecting the
Down at the bottom, the present mode.
this is from the beginning, top left.
Oh.
Sometimes you just have to hit from beginning.
We're looking at something different here.
Yeah. Oh, they can't hit something with this.
Yes.
Oh.
we go.
Sorry.
It's better.
What I'm here for.
This is, see, July 4th, when we had the whole summer in front of us and everything seemed possible. This is from the rooftop at Opiongo. So the sun was coming up at my back as we're looking at the field. And it was just the most beautiful thing. So next summer, let's just get together for a breakfast at Opiongo and we'll just watch the sunrise on the roof. So we, as I say, the work we do in facilities is meant to enhance the environment. That's something that, we spent a lot of time talking about in the development of our school design standards, which I'm thinking are time for, that was 5 years ago. We need to rethink that. So that will be work that we undertake over the course of the next year and a half. And so the other thing that we, there are always questions about how do we decide on what projects we do. And, there are a few people in the room that remember Eleanor, and the mantra of the day for facilities, Eleanor Newman, who was a former director, the rules of engagement were always safe, warm, and dry. And so we've tried to carry forward with that approach, but we've also enhanced that because we think a lot more about the student experience, the staff experience, and enhancing those environments to make sure that we're trying to make the environment part of the learning that happens in the classroom, or at least make sure that the environment isn't getting in the way. So in the pieces we think about, accessibility was not on anyone's radar when I started in this role 11 years ago. But it's so important now as we welcome students and staff that may have disabilities, some apparent and some not. And then the other thing too is that there's a much greater focus on occupant comfort. We saw late spring and early summer about how hot, like the people, I think of our schools that don't have any air conditioning, or there may be air conditioning in the library or the office only. There's just nowhere to go when it's 30, 31 outside and 89% humidity. We can't expect that the same sort of learning is going to happen in that environment when you take away that comfort factor. So I'll get back to that at the end, and we'll talk about this summer. So this was an issue that we've been working on for a number of years, but we finished our transition to a building automation contractor called Ainsworth. We had a number of sites that were still under our old Siemens system, and because that system was no longer supported anymore, it presented a huge vulnerability in terms of cyber hacking. There's a school board in the States that suffered a major upheaval because of hacking that occurred through their building automation software. And the number of pieces of connected equipment that we have in our facilities right now is we need to make sure that I need to make sure that facilities isn't part of the problem. I think our ITC department does an excellent job of protecting the district from those bad actors. But I need to make sure that my building automation system get on the internet so that we can monitor and try and ensure that we have energy savings and occupant comfort, but we need to make sure that's done safely. And so with these expensive upgrades that we finished off with these 4 sites, all of our buildings are on the same platform, and we're in a much better spot in terms of IT security. Roofing is always a big part of what we do in the summertime. We try to keep our roofing, the smelly part of our roofing jobs in the summer when there are fewer staff present. This is a picture of our newest building, Valor. You can see that black strip where the granules, and you can see a lot of the granules have come off. This was, and this is to be expected. We, at the time we built the school, we chose a 10-year roof that surprisingly has lasted for 10 years. We try not to, when we're replacing roofs, I'm trying to put roofs on that will last until I'm dead so that no one can blame me about having to redo it. If we look here, this is Valor again on the left. And so and of course, they're both white roofs, which is great because it reflects heat, reduces energy consumption. But the roofs, the roof on the left at Valor, so that's the tech wing, it has white stone on it, which is very stable. Obviously it doesn't degrade over time in the UV. And these are, these are roofs that we're seeing lasting 25 years, and it's a more expensive roofing system, but it provides value. This is the same system that our coterminous board uses, the hospital, D&D, and CNL. And so it's well proven in the area. The top picture, so that's Central Public School. And we had to go a different route there because of the nature of the construction. It doesn't have the same structural capacity. It's got a lightweight roof on it. So that the white on that roof is it's a coating that's applied over top of the layered roofing system. I'm not sure that it will last 25 years, but it should outlast me. And at the bottom is Fellows, where we did 2 big chunks of roof this year. Our roofs, I know we have leaks every year, and they're caused, typically leaks in roofs aren't caused by a failure of the membrane. It's more where there's a penetration in the membrane, that we've got either siding where there's differences in elevation in buildings so that the siding isn't sealed properly, or there's penetrations for roof drains or rooftop units where they bring air in. Those are typically our points of failure. It's very rare to see a failure of the actual roofing system at this point. And this was just a little project, but it was important that we've ensured that all sites have at least 2 flagpoles, because we should not be flying 2 flags on, or any flag with a Canadian flag, which we were doing at several sites. So now we've eliminated that. And here at the board office, we do have the 3 flagpoles, which is nice for the recognition of the various months or weeks that come through that we want to acknowledge. Accessibility projects have always, we've kept on increasing the amount of accessibility projects we do every year. We're more, I think, proactive in how we operate in terms of accessibility than we did 7 or 10 years ago, where we would respond to an identified need, that there would be a student, they'd be in the school, and we'd say that we'll try and swoop in and fix whatever we can to aid in that student's accessibility. That's not good enough anymore. We need to think about the broader community, and things like the lift upgrades, the but the tender was awarded for the accessibility upgrades at or the accessible entrance at our high school. So I hate giving timelines because I always blow it, but I would say by Christmas, if you're in a wheelchair or have mobility issues, you'll be able to enter our high school at the front door, which that feels important to me, that you shouldn't have to drive 600 feet down the side of the school and use 2 lifts to get to the office if you're a parent coming in to to meet with the teacher. This is the cracked and damaged asphalt and I wish I had more before pictures at Central, because we did we did quite a bit of work there this summer. That's the after. So new concrete, new asphalt. it's more inviting, it looks better. So there's the Central's such a cute little school. It's a unique design among our buildings, so I appreciate that. We need to figure out what that, it's like, I look at the chair and I think, there may be a question about the office, and I'm hoping that this is the year, because at some point, someone's patience is going to run out, and the next facilities manager will have to deal with it. But because you've got your parking lot to the side, and then the main entrance to the school is across the parking lot, it does present a little bit of an issue in terms of how people access the building. So we've been working for a long time to refine that access. And I think we've settled on that the office needs to move into the staff room to greet visitors as they come in from the accessible entrance in what is the side of the building now, but would become the main visitor entrance. And this is at the back. So there's fresh asphalt, fresh concrete. You can see the yellow tactile strip at the top of the stairs and at the bottom of the ramp. And I don't know if the railing should be there now, but I haven't been down to check. So we just had temporary wooden railings to meet building code while we were waiting for the metal railings to be finished. But again, it's a safer entrance now, where there was spalling concrete before. This is at Cobden at the bus entrance. You can see the wooden ramp. Then afterwards, we now have a solid ramp and handrails to make access easier. We spent a lot of money on the building envelope last year. This is a before. We do have the majority of our air handling equipment is on our roofs, and so that, depending on how it was placed, it does require ductwork on top of the roofs, which needs to be insulated because it's hot in the summertime and it's really cold in winter. We want to make sure that air is protected. If we're going to the effort of heating that air to blow it into a school in January, you want to make sure that it stays warm. So the exterior ductwork is insulated, but over time it's certainly become damaged. We've had issues sometimes with birds picking at it. And so as soon as that coating is pierced, it allows water to enter. So what we found at Queen Elizabeth was that insulation around the ductwork was soaked. So in the wintertime, you can guarantee that that's a huge block of ice that warm air is traveling through. So I'm really looking forward to seeing if there's a difference in the amount of money we spend on natural gas at Queen E this year, because we've got properly insulated and sealed ductwork outside. And there's a lot of exterior ductwork at Queen E. The other thing that we've spent a lot of, this is Cobden. Again, it's properly sealed at the back of the building. We did the same thing. The other thing that I don't have photos of is we're working with a company to seal all of, when you think of there's structural concrete panels, or sometimes structural panels on the exterior buildings, and some of them are 50 and 70 years old, and the caulking between those panels falls out, it shrinks, it gets damaged. I think we've done about half of our schools with tearing that old caulking out and resealing it. And it's a very time-consuming endeavor, but it's those little, that's the low-hanging fruit of energy savings, is to ensure that those cracks are sealed. Well, the big money items. This is Opionco. On the left, that's the tech wing air handling unit. On the right is the science wing unit. These are massive air handlers that Opionco's a big school. It's about 149,000 square feet. The air handlers that were in the building were original. So they're, I think we share a birthday. So they were 55 or 56 years old. And so we certainly got our money's worth out of them, which is great in terms of long-livedness, but they weren't great in terms of energy savings. So what we've installed here are rooftop units that have heat wheels in them. So your cool air in the wintertime, the cool air is more pre-warmed through a wheel that turns with the exhaust air that's coming out. So it results in significant savings, which is really important at Opeongo because Opeongo is on propane, which is, I think, just about the most expensive way to heat a building. The other thing about this, there's no air conditioning on these two units, but because we weren't prepared to put on DX chillers, so our typical chilling units, to add air conditioning. But next summer, we will either be tearing up the field to put in ground source pumps, or we'll be using air-to-air heat pumps to add air conditioning, but also to take up some of that heating load. Because the other thing at Opeongo is we have 3 boiler rooms with there's a total of 6 boilers. They're all of the same vintage. They all went in at the same time and they're all done. So by adding either the ground source or the air source heat pumps, we'll be able to downsize those boilers. Right now they're 2 million BTU each, and I think we're probably just over 800,000. So we'll go from 6 million down to 12 million down to 4.8 million BTU. So the nice thing about the heat pumps is they'll warm that boiler water up to 140 degrees, and then the propane will only be used to get it for that delta, that change up to 170 to what we need to keep the school comfortable. This is Fellows. On the right, it's the air handling unit. On the left, it's the Hitachi condenser that provides, again, it's the heat pump. So it will supplement the heating that goes on in the rooftop unit and also provide the cooling. You'll see these things poking up on roofs all over the place. Eganville has a number of them. We added one at Renfrew. So on to the good stuff. This is a vinyl, it's a vinyl floor. It's a roll product at Herman Street. We did Killaloe as well, where previously it was a tile floor. The thing we like about the vinyl floor is that it's cushioned, so that it does provide a responsive surface. It's also, we have other synthetic floors at a number of schools that we're slowly phasing out, where it's more of a neoprene type product, and I'm sure maybe you've seen it at Queen Elizabeth or at Eganville in the big gym. Those floors are good in terms of cushioning, but if you ever have to dive for a ball or you slide on your knee, you are using skin and flesh because of the tactile. Where this floor, it has a little more slide to it. This is Rockwood. So we did 4 classroom upgrades at Rockwood in the 91 edition, where there was a cloakroom at basically at the hallway side. This is the cloakroom into the left. It took up a huge amount of space. It's about 8 feet that we lost in the classroom by having the cloakroom there. So on the left, we put in 115 lockers, and I think we found space for about 6 more. So every student in the 4 classrooms will hopefully have a locker in the next month or so. And you can see on the right is the classroom with the, this is from the doorway too. So you gain that space back on the left as you enter the classroom. And you can just barely see on the window side, there is a countertop there. So it does provide an opportunity for students to stand and work, or there are some stools. We have we've added some open shelving, like our typical elementary classroom open shelving, and some closed storage on the left. It's also got a new floor in it. It's the typical school tile, the cement look, luxury vinyl, and I hate that it has the word luxury in it, but it's just what it's called. But it's a very durable product, and the thing I love about it is that it doesn't require any chemicals to maintain it. We don't have to use stripper to take wax off. We don't have to put wax on it. We don't have to put sealer on it. We just use a neutral rinse to clean it. So we're spending less money on chemicals, and we're dumping less harmful things down the drain. That's it. So I'm not sure what this will look like next year, but I do appreciate the opportunity to come and try and highlight some of the great work that my colleagues do in facilities. I know I'm not supposed to say are there any questions, but I'm just going to run away.
I will ask though if there are any questions.
Thank you.
Questions, comments, wonderings about? Oh, Leo.
Well, just comments, right? So, at the end of June, when everybody leaves, it's kind of like you're waiting just for them to leave. So all your workers can come in, right? And then hit the ground running, right? So you do like an awful lot over the summer where you can, right? Because we had a little chat before, and it was like when you can get contractors in and supplies, right? So it's just lots of logistics, and just to have the people come in and work over the summer. It's
Yeah, certainly summer is the busiest time, but you'll have noticed we keep on expanding that construction season because we have to. That it's not possible to get the work done and make the spend that we're trying to achieve in 2 months. It's fantastic when we can work with our administrators and school staff to open up spaces to refit classrooms during the school year. And at most of our sites, we do have, almost all of our sites do have a spare classroom where if the principal and staff are willing, we can keep those classroom renovations happening, because we've got hundreds of classrooms that haven't been touched since the 90s or before. And we need to start refreshing those spaces because they've lived their life, and it's time for a different way of doing things to support we're hoping the teachers aren't teaching like they did in 1989. So we need to make sure the environment supports that.
Trustee Kaiser, I believe you have a question or comment?
I think it's more of a comment to Bill and a compliment that I know that, the handicap access, or, the disability accesses at schools. We had talked about that a couple of years ago in terms of, if you don't, if you're not involved in it, you don't notice it, but how difficult it is to try to access these entrances for someone who's in a wheelchair, for example. And I appreciate the focus when it was brought up a couple of years ago, and I appreciate the focus on the presentation today. Just a compliment to Bill. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And if I could comment to that, over the next 2 years, our accessibility will be at the forefront of our efforts. And we're working on, I think of Mackenzie as the most obvious example. We're actively working on getting those plans ready so that this summer we can have the main entrance at I guess potentially our second largest school to be accessible for everyone instead of going around the side and in by the gym, which, you know, that may be an option if you're going to the auditorium or the gym, but if you're going to the office, you should come in the main door. And so that's my goal over the next 2 years, is to make sure that every main entrance is accessible. The other piece that is the air conditioning, I would hope, you know, I hate saying it out loud, but we need to improve the amount of air conditioning we have in our schools, because people are suffering in June and September. This September was a good example, but we had temperatures approaching 30 degrees and lots of uncomfortable people. So over the next 2 years, I would like 50% of our space to be air conditioned. Now, and I would like that 50% to be distributed equitably among all schools, because I can say that Fellows and Valor are air conditioned, and that doesn't really do anything for McNabb or Pineview. So.
Okay, Kim?
Well, that answered a little bit of my question, but I wondered for ADHS, for the accessible entrance, when I know timelines, but when will work be started on that, and how is that going to work with the school day?
It will mean that that entrance won't be accessible. So starting right now doesn't feel like a great idea to me. We're still working with the municipality on building permit, but it is a fall project for us, that it would be done before Christmas is the expectation.
Okay.
2 questions from me. One you probably know, but the other one would be, I mean, we approve a dollar figure every year for upgrades and changes. A sense of how much of that we use this year. I know it's always challenging because you probably can't spend, in one ways you probably can't spend it all, but in other ways you probably can. So I'm just wondering where you ended up this year with that.
I think you approved 14 million last November, and when I checked today, we were at 12.
Okay.
Last year, we were under 6 in our capital spend. So it was a big year. We need 2 more big years coming up that need to, because of the change in the funding, we need to make sure that our capital backlog is spent. So yeah, next year we'll have to do quite a bit better than we did this year. So we're trying to figure that out too.
So there's some changes in funding. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So last April, anyway, last year, the ministry put basically a sunset clause on on capital funding. So we have 2 pots of money. There's the school renewal allocation, and then there's the school condition improvement fund. And there's different rules about how we can spend that money. But what was implemented was that there's a 24-month spend available. So if we get money this September, we've got 24 months to spend it. Otherwise, the ministry would like their money back. I'm not really comfortable with that, because we do have lots of needs in the board, so we need to figure out how to get an enormous amount of project work done, like far beyond what we've ever done in the past.
It's going to be a huge challenge then, isn't it, to try to figure out how to manage all of those pieces.
Yes.
It is has it been a little easier this last couple of years? I know just kind of post-COVID, it was really challenging getting contractors. It was challenging getting materials. Has that eased up a little bit this last year?
It has. Timelines in terms of equipment availability have shrunk, so that's improved things. There's a little bit better contractor availability in this past year. I'm seeing a lot of bottleneck in the consultants, the engineering support, the architectural support that we need for major projects. So, at some point we'll be talking about the Eganville cultural space. So on that project, there's a structural engineer, there's mechanical electrical engineers, the architect, there's there's civil. There's a lot of pieces in the background supporting that work before the contractor actually shows up to start digging the hole. And timelines for that group of support people have been getting longer and longer. And so, when we had, the fellow science room project, which has been on the books for a number of years, I was anticipating we would have that tendered in May, and felt we had left a reasonable amount of time for the degree of complexity with a single science room upgrade, which still involves almost all of those same people, along with some asbestos work, and but it's just about ready to go to tender now, and the timelines are just getting longer and longer, which is very frightening. When we operate under very strict procurement rules, which is great, but when we tie in long consultant times and longer procurement processes, and doing also, you get the tender out, and you award the tender, we need to make sure that we're doing our diligence, that we're awarding to firms that are capable of completing the work, that they've got proper insurance. There's a lot to getting work done that I don't think is, it's not at the forefront when a teacher hears they're getting their room done, and then 2 years later it's not done yet. Sometimes the complexity of it and the number of pieces that have to fall into line are
So the spending within the 24 months is going to really
Yeah, if I could
cause
just build on that.
just with
24 months, but I mean, not every dollar or penny has to be spent as long as you're contractually obligated. So a PO is not good enough. I mean, you've
Yeah.
got to have, because of the delays that Bill is speaking to, because of all of the parties that are involved, because that procurement process does take the time it does. A 2-year window doesn't allow for much, but it means, as we're well on our way, the project is well on its way, so it can go beyond the
So it doesn't have to be
years.
completed in the 2
No.
years, but needs to be well on the way.
needs to be
Has to be an
started.
idea. It
No.
has to be significantly started. Yes, yeah. So, but that will be a challenge.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And so Central Public School is more than an idea. I know,
This is the year.
I know.
This is the year.
And I truly appreciate all the hard work that you do, Bill, and kind of keeping all of these things on track. And I know that you have some amazing staff that do some
Absolutely.
amazing work, just
Yes.
wonderful.
It's the staff that do it.
So we really do appreciate all the hard work. And thank you for sharing the update on some of the big pieces that you did over the summer. It's really well done. Thank you for that. So appreciate that very much. Okay, let's move on then to the draft board work plan and Director Amy. I guess I'll hand it over to you to start that one as well.
Thank you, Chair. I am going to keep this report very brief. Every year, Executive Council develops a board work plan that outlines all the reports that will come to committee meetings and board meetings.
it's not work for us.
No, it's not. Sounds like it, eh? Love that.
She's brilliant.
I know. Love it.
Concerned. I'm like,
No,
I was thinking we are going to go home with the worksheet.
sounds like it.
can't do
No, it's the term used to describe the schedule of reports that are coming to you over the course of the school year. And so what I would like to say are 3 pieces to keep in mind. One, it is a working document. We're constantly revising that document. So we would encourage you to actually use the link provided in the report, because that takes you to the working document that we're continually revising every Monday when we meet as Executive Council. We're reviewing reports that are coming up. We're looking at what's happening. For example, right now we know transportation is, a big priority for the district. So there will be a transportation update at every single board and committee meeting until this is resolved. And so there are different pieces like that will find themselves on our meeting agendas. Also, wanted to share that I do meet on a weekly basis with the chair and vice chair to provide some updates, but also engage in agenda setting. And so you have, as trustees, have the opportunity to provide input into the board work plan through the chair and vice. So for example, if there was a priority in the strategic plan that you felt like we weren't giving enough updates on outside of those 8 focus goals, you can give that feedback to the chair and vice. They would give that to me through our meeting, and then we would find the best way to provide updates to you through committee meetings or board meetings. And finally, we're rethinking some of the staff reports that we are bringing to you as trustees because of the learning that we have been doing together with the support of Marion Thompson Howell. So I just wanted to highlight that as well, that really this year is it's a bit of a rethink year. You know, we did some learning last year. We have new members of executive council. We have new trustees at the table. And so as we progress through each month, we're really thinking about, okay, what makes sense to bring to this, you know, today, September board meeting, next month, the October committees meetings. We're actually really thinking through, not just going through the motions. We're thinking through every single report. What's the intention? Why are we bringing it at this time throughout the school year? So just wanted to really give those points because it is a working document. You're going to see that every week we're in there and we're making changes to it. But we wanted to show you that we do have an overall plan. And the final thing is, in the past, we were bringing annual action plans almost every month. But from our perspective, departments and program services need to be developing their plans at the beginning of a school year so that they have a plan that they're implementing throughout the school year. And so they're in the process of developing those plans now. But we're also rethinking those because we have several ministry plans. So I'm going to name some of them for you. And then we'll talk about all the annual action plans on top of a few other plans. So we have an NTIP plan, New Teacher Induction Program plan, French as a Second Language plan, Early Years plan, a math plan, an Indigenous Education plan. Those are 5 ministry plans I can just name off the top of my head, and there are probably more. Then we had about 7 or 8 annual action plans on top of the strategic plan and on top of the student achievement plan. And we have an ICT plan, we have a mental health strategy, special education plan. There are so many plans. And so what we're trying to rethink right now is how to have fewer plans that are more integrated. Because at the end of the day, a teacher in a classroom needs to be able to take all of that stuff and make it all come alive in the classroom for the students. They have to integrate all of it. Special education, Indigenous education, equity, math, literacy, all, you name it. So we're thinking about how do we as a system integrate all of these plans so that it's integrated when our education staff receive the professional learning, the resources. We need to know how to integrate it at our level so that we can help educators make sense of it at the classroom level. So over time, you're going to see fewer discrete plans and more integrated plans. And that will sort of come alive for you in the board work plan as well. Okay. That makes sense. Yeah, go ahead, Christina.
For me, when I do stuff like that, and I think it's wonderful, and I definitely love, like I'm seeing in the reports, like less meetings, more functional, that kind of stuff. But the connection to where you talk about the teachers, but I'm also wondering, is there the connection to the ministry reports and your annual reports? Like all these things should be tools that accumulate to that, right? So all those connections are there, right?
I appreciate you bringing that up because I was just saying to the chair today that I think when I look at last year, we didn't actually bring a lot of information to you about all those other ministry plans and reports that we do. Like we're sort of almost doing those on the side and not sharing that with you. And so we need to actually bring that information to you. So for example, next month at the Equity and Inclusion Committee meeting, Superintendent Cronwald and Principal Nelson are going to bring information about the board action plan for Indigenous education. And then show the connections to our strategic plan and to the work that our teams do in the district. But we want to make you aware of what's in that ministry plan and how it aligns with the strategic plan. So over time, we're going to try to link those different plans and reports for you.
Yeah, for efficiency. I mean, they should inform each other. That's great.
Yes.
Your comments or questions? It does make a lot of sense. I just don't envy you trying to figure out.
Can I go to it?
So that it just makes sense, right? But it does make sense, and I appreciate the work on that, and we understand that this board work plan. And hopefully everybody's had a chance to take a look at it. So you have an idea of what's coming in your next meetings, but it's always open to other things as well. If there's something that you feel needs to come to the board, you know, just talk to Leo and I, and we can certainly spin that forward. Now, I did notice that there's a recommendation in your report as well.
Yes, because these are the reports for you
Exactly.
at your meetings.
Right.
And so we do believe there should be a motion to accept the draft
Work plan.
work plan, and knowing though that we will be
Yeah.
continually updating it in consultation with the chair and vice through our weekly meetings.
Exactly. Okay, so we have a recommendation. The Renfrew County Board of Trustees approve the board work plan for the 2024-2025 school year. And again, as we know, it is a bit of a working document, but this is the first draft. So Carthy, you'll make that motion?
Okay.
Okay.
The motion.
And do I have a seconder? Kim, thank you very much. All those in favor of approving the board work plan for 24-25? Excellent. Okay, thank you very much. That's great. We'll look forward to integration of all those plans. That will be the challenge. Okay, and again, we're back to you with transportation update, because I know this is something that's on everybody's mind, and we're anxious to hear what you can share with us.
Thank you, Chair. As this is our first official board meeting of the school year, this report summarizes a lot of the information that has been shared through various means throughout the month of August and into September. So I'll start with communication. On August 12th, 2024, the RCGTC, Renfrew County Joint Transportation Consortium, advised our families that they had received a notice from the bus companies that if bus contracts were not in place by the beginning of the school year, that bus services would not be provided to students. At this time, families were encouraged to consider alternative transportation arrangements. And at the same time, Executive Council began working with central staff and school administrative teams on contingency plans. On August 27th, the RCJTC provided a further update that said that they did not anticipate that bus services would be in place for the beginning of the school year. And from there, there's been ongoing communication from the RCJTC and RCDSB to families and staff. And at this time, weekly updates from both organizations are being sent to staff and families. And as you saw, you will see today, I will be forwarding you an update from the RCJTC that went out today. I'll be forwarding that to you as well. From a student safety perspective, I've shared this widely. Student safety is our #1 priority. And huge thank you to the 3 school superintendents who work very closely with the school administrators to ensure that additional measures were implemented from the beginning of the school year. Time was spent on the PA day getting ready for the first day of school. And some of the additional measures are listed here. For example, lengthening the drop-off and pickup times to spread out the traffic at our schools, working alongside police and bylaw officers. We paid for police presence at key locations to ensure there was safety with the traffic. We also put out advisories through the media, advising just the general public to maybe avoid streets the throughways, you know, for example, Bell Street near Fellows and Champlain as an example. And during the first week, adjustments were made, and then we received feedback, you know, over the first 3 days and into the second week that the drop off and pickup time, it was becoming more and more safer and also more and more efficient. So again, just want to really acknowledge the staff for all the hard work that they did to implement those measures. In terms of remote learning, during the first week of school, grades 7 to 12 students received their one-to-one Chromebooks. By Monday, September 9th, asynchronous remote learning was established for grade 7 to 12 students. And by Wednesday, September 11th, the same was done for kindergarten to grade 6 students. Obviously, there are exceptions in terms of the supports that might be required by an individual family, but that was the overall guidance that Google Classrooms would be set up by those dates so that students could access learning from home if needed. Work packages are being made available to students who have connectivity challenges. In terms of attendance for the first 11 days, an average of 1.5 students missed school due to a lack of transportation. I will share that last Thursday and Friday, we pierced 2%. And I have been sharing publicly through the media and with yourselves that we knew that, you know, 1.5%, which equates to about 140 students in our CDSB. We knew that again, students were in attendance for the most part because of the efforts made by the families. But we recognize that this is not sustainable for families for various reasons, financial reasons, also the logistics with work. Many employers across the county are being very flexible with their employees and supporting them and getting their children to school. We've received emails saying that some families are taking a loss in hours and wages because they have to drive their children to school. And that's very, very upsetting for everyone involved. So we did see 2% Pierce last Thursday and Friday. Yesterday, we did go below 1.5% again. So Monday's often start strong at the beginning of the week and use the weekend to get some plans into place. So and so we had 1.45% of students miss yesterday due to transportation. In terms of negotiations, what I would say is, as you know, that's confidential between the RCJTC and the 7 independent bus companies that did have contracts for the 23-24 school year. What has been shared publicly is that the 2 school boards and the RCJTC advocated to the Ministry of Education for additional funding to support transportation and received 4% for the 23-24 school year, and then a 12% increase, $2.2 million of an increase for the 24-25 school year. That was offered. That's public because we have the RFSQ process going on in parallel. And that is what's in that RFSQ is that 12% increase. So that's public. And clearly that's been so far turned down by the bus companies. What I would like to share is, as the director, reminding all of us about all of the reports that we brought to you last year going through the budget cycle and the financial challenges that many school boards are facing in Ontario this past spring. They were very public in the media about that, large boards, medium-sized boards, small boards. And so we did go through a rigorous budget cycle last spring and had to make some challenging decisions. And I shared those, the thinking that went into that, all of the work, the consultation that went into that. But overall, we did reduce through attrition by about 10 positions across the RCDSB. And that was to arrive at a balanced budget. And yes, you did make the decision to dedicate $300,000 out of accumulated surplus to upgrading our secondary shop classes, which we're grateful for. But aside from that investment, we arrived at a balanced budget. But it was with some tough decisions that had to be made. And so my point of sharing that with you again is that if we had to find funding outside of the transportation envelope to pay for transportation, we would have some really challenging decisions ahead of us because we just went through that process in the spring. And the other point that I'd like to make is that even if we wanted to do that or thought that that was a good idea to explore, there are ministry rules about what percentage can be taken from one pot to pay for another pot. For example, out of the classroom envelope to pay for facilities and transportation. So there are rules around how much money can be moved from one envelope to another. And we just wanted to raise that as well. I'm going over this one in detail because we know this is of great interest to many members of our educational community. In terms of current status, the RCJTC has been taking concrete steps on a daily basis to get student transportation in place for our students. And they are exploring every possible option. And they are taking many, many concrete steps. A lot of that is confidential right now at this time, but I do want to assure everyone that they are doing everything possible within the financial constraints that they have to get transportation in place for the students. Yesterday, there was a meeting between the RCJTC and the 7 bus operators that did have contracts to try to continue with negotiations. Yesterday, Mark Searson, the Director of Education for the RCCDSB, and I did attend that meeting to share especially the impact on our students and families, and also to share the financial reality of the 2 school boards and to sort of talk bigger picture, just as I just did, around what it would mean for RCDSB if we had to pull funds from another envelope to pay for transportation and what the impact of that would be. So we shared that information with the 7 operators yesterday. What I will share is that it was a positive meeting. The tone was positive on both sides, and the operators would agree with my statement on that because they've communicated that. So overall, it was positive, and we're hopeful that we're going to be able to find a resolution. The last point that I would make is that the consortium and the two school boards are in regular contact with the Ministry of Education and keeping them apprised of the situation and also communicating to them the severe impact that this transportation disruption has had on students and families. And so they are fully aware of what's happening. They are trying to work alongside us as well. They did review and revise their funding formula for transportation last year. And that is partially why we received that 12% increase. It was because of their review of that formula. And that's what resulted in that 12% increase in funding, which is that $2.2 million. So we're in regular communication with the ministry. And, you know, we are hopeful that they will also be able to help us find a resolution for this situation. We have received questions around what's the timeline? Like, is there a timeline? And there is no timeline that we can predict because we need both sides to agree to a contract and contracts, I would say, because there were contracts with multiple operators. So the timeline is not predictable because we need both sides to agree to a contract and we're not there yet. So that's the information that we have that we're able to share right now about transportation.
Okay, questions, wonderings, comments, concerns? No more questions? I think one of the questions that I had for Director Levy was whether or not, and maybe you can talk a little bit about, you did meet with John Yakubuski today as well. Do you want to just say a word about that maybe?
Yes, so the two directors and the representatives from the consortium did meet with MPP Yakubuski today to give him an update about, from our perspective, because he is getting lots of concerns, right? He does represent the provincial government in the Renfrew County area, so he is receiving a lot of concerns, as you are as well. And so, you know, we know that he has been communicating with the bus operators. We wanted to make sure that he also had the perspective of the two school boards and the consortium. So we did meet with him today. He was very listened and really is trying to deeply understand the issues that we're facing, like transportation wise, but also more broader in terms of, again, sharing with him the financial realities of two small school boards and what we needed to do to arrive at a balanced budget in the spring. And in fact, when he visited Opiongo High School for Take Your MPP to school, we talked about that with him at that time. Because we were talking about where to get the funds to really support our secondary shop classes. That was the purpose of that visit. So I reminded him about that today because we had talked to him about our financial realities back in, I think that was April or May. So we reminded him about that. So we're really just trying to help MPP Yakubuski understand our perspective in terms of our financial realities in the RCDSB.
Any other comments or questions?
I have a question. And I saw on the Facebook individuals were organizing meetings with parents. Did you hear anything about that?
We haven't been formally advised by any groups that they're having meetings, you know, that parents are organizing meetings, but it sounds like there might be some community organized events. And so we haven't been advised, or, you know, we're not sure where that's going. Certainly open to receiving feedback from any parent groups that choose to organize.
Yeah, go ahead, Leo.
So we had talked about just, you had mentioned that John Yakubuski was getting, you know, letters and stuff from, you know, the parents and also from the operators. So we were talking that, you know, maybe we should also send a letter, you know, on behalf of the board, our board, as well as the Catholic board, to, you know, show our support for the boards and, give our side. So we have a little recommendation for that the Renfrew County District School Board write a joint letter with the Renfrew County Catholic District School Board to MPP John Yakubuski, informing him of the board's side of what's going on with the transportation issue.
Okay, we'll make that as a motion. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Carthy, thank you very much. Any comments or questions or concerns about that? I think we just felt it would be prudent for us to also put forward on behalf of the Board of Trustees, our concerns as well. Go ahead, Dave, go ahead.
Thank you. Just a comment, and I mean, I'm support of the motion, obviously, but I think the key term that was used earlier by the director was sustainable. I am driving my grandkids to school, or they would not be going to school. And I, talk to a lot of parents, of course, in my area, but I think the key word is this is not sustainable. So we need to come up with something that is going to, become sustainable, whether it's a different model of transportation or, hopefully something happens with the ministry in regards to funding to help get a deal. But I just wanted to reiterate that I think that that's a key term, is the sustainability of this whole situation.
Thanks, Dave. That's a really good point to remind us to make sure that we include that in the letter. So could I just have a vote on that? Is everybody in favor of us putting together a letter along with the chair of the Catholic Board? And that is carried. Thank you very much. So we'll work on that this week for sure. I don't believe the Catholic Board is meeting again until next week, so they will need to take it to their Board of Trustees as well. So as soon as they approve it, then we'll go forward with that. So thank you for the update on that. I don't see any other questions or comments. I know it's taken a huge amount of time and energy to kind of keep this going, but we also know that parents and families and communities are also trying to support their students and their children as best they can. And there's no doubt that everybody's kind of working towards the right end here. And we're sincerely hoping that we get to a good point pretty soon. Really have to appreciate to the administrators and staff in each school that just make sure that our students are safe. That's certainly our most important piece for sure. So fingers crossed, and we do recognize that parents and families are really struggling with this. And you're right, it's certainly not sustainable. So this too will get resolved. It's just a matter of when and how. Thank you very much. Okay, let's move on then to now, one of the questions I had before I do that is I believe in our policies, we actually had to have a motion to go past 6 o'clock. Do you remember that, Trustee Kaiser? You don't remember that. Anyway, I think because our timing was earlier, right? But I don't know if we need to do that now because we changed our time frame. So maybe we'll just assume that it's okay to go past 6 o'clock tonight because we did adjust the initial timing of our. Okay, we're going to go into our committee reports to the board. And we do have a closed session first off on the audit committee closed session report from Trustee Boland. So we would need to close the doors, and we do ask that the student trustees leave as well. So you'll be back shortly though, Sydney. Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah. So could I have a motion to move into close, please? A motion to move into close. Leo, thank you. Seconded by Kim. Thank you very much. All those in favor of moving into closed? And that is carried. Good. All right. So I'll turn it over to Trustee Boland. Sit down again. Audit committee meeting open session report. Trustee Boland, I'll turn it to you again.
Thank you. The audit committee met on Wednesday, September 11th, 2024 to discuss the following items. There's 4. 1, regional internal audit manager letter to the audit committee. Number 2, the 2024-25 annual report on internal audit activities. Number 3, 2024-25 regional internal audit plan, and 4 annual reports to the board from the audit committee. Following recommendations were made. Number 1, 2024-25 annual report on internal audit activities. That the Renfrew County District School Board Audit Committee, A, receives the information of the 2024-25 annual report on internal audit activities, and B, approves the 2024-25 regional internal audit team charter. Number 2, the 2024-25 regional internal audit plan that the Renfrew County District School Board Audit Committee recommends for approval the current year 2024-25 regional internal audit plan as presented. And number 3, annual reports to the board from the audit committee, that the audit committee approved the annual report to the Board of Trustees for the year ending August 31st, 2024, and the annual report to the Board of Trustees and forwarded to the Ministry of Education for the year ended August 31st, 2024, and that both reports be adopted by the Renfrew County District School Board at the September 24th, 2024 board meeting. And you see attached 1 and 2 with your packages. And move the adoption of this report.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a seconder for adopting this report? Trustee Reggiani, thank you. Any questions or comments for Leo? I keep looking over here, but Dave's left now, so I'm just looking at Sydney now. Okay, all those in favor of adopting this report? And that's carried. Thank you very much. On to Special Education Advisory Committee meeting, and I would ask Trustee Reggiani to report.
Special Education Advisory Committee met on June 19th, 2024. The Special Education Advisory Committee discussed the following. Staff gave updates and reports from board was given. Association reports were presented and no recommendations were made.
Okay, so you move the receipt of this report. Okay, thank you. And do I have a seconder for the receipt of this report? Trustee Doherty, thank you. Any questions or comments for Trustee Reggiani? All those in favor of supporting this motion? And that is carried as well. Thank you very much. Thank you, Kirby. Program and Student Achievement Committee Open Session Report. Trustee Gannett is not here today, but I believe he's asked Leo to present the report on his behalf.
Yes. The Program and Student Achievement Committee met on Tuesday, September 10th, 2024 to discuss the following items. Number 1, summer learning of 2024. Number 2, program and or service review cycle for 2024 to 25 school year. Number 3, SAL committee. There was a verbal update. And number 4, PPM 128 Code of Conduct. There is a recommendation that the Renfrew County District School Board approve the program and or service review cycle for the 2024-25 school year. I move on behalf of Mike Gannett the adoption of this report.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for adopting this report? Trustee Reddy, we'll put you on that one if that's okay.
Sure.
Any questions or comments for Leo? Seeing none, all those who approve the adoption of the program and services report, program and student achievement report, and that is carried. Thank you very much. All right, moving right along, Finances and Resources Committee meeting. This is the open session, and we'll do the closed session afterwards. But Trustee Reddy, I believe you were chairing that committee, so if you could bring forward that report, that would be great.
Sure. The open session, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So a meeting was held on September 10th. The following items were discussed: the proposal for the 2024-2025 board and committee meetings report. And the following recommendation were made that the Renfrew County District School Board amend Board Policy 9 to remove the committee of the whole sessions. And the second one, that the Renfrew County District School Board amend Board Policy 9 to adjust the start times for standing committees and board meetings to 4 p.m.
So you move the adoption of this report?
Yes.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that? Trustee Doherty, thank you. All those in favor of supporting this motion, adopting this report? Yeah, that's excellent. That's passed. Thank you very much. And we have a closed session, so we'll have to move into closed session again. Sorry, Sydney. Do I have a motion to move into closed? Trustee Reggiani, thank you. Seconded by Trustee Reddy, thank you. And we are now in closed session, and you can now share the
For today. Thank you.
Welcome.
She did very well, here to tell you.
I got people halfway through, but I tried.
Okay, just a couple more things on our agenda. I do have a chair's update, which is in your package, but I will highlight a couple of things. Certainly, we wanted to very warmly welcome back all of our students, staff, and families. Unfortunately, it's been a bit of a challenge to start up, but I know in some discussions that I've had with a couple of principals and staff, things are going pretty well overall, and hopefully this situation, the transportation situation, will get resolved before too long. In the meantime, we're still working away in the classrooms at our board table. I did want to remind us that we did have a good professional development opportunity before our September the 10th committee meeting on the Ontario Human Rights Code, which I think most of us found quite interesting. And we'll be doing a follow-up on that, I believe, in early October as well. And just three things to remind everybody about as we will be working on our new strategic plan. We know we've kind of postponed the timing a little bit. So my guess is we probably won't be starting consultations maybe until the new year. And that's okay. We'll catch up, I'm quite sure. So we'll look forward to that. The second one, I just wanted to remind people about the Ministry of Education consultation that is out right now, asking for input of the public and anybody who's interested in looking at equipping students with life skills. So if you haven't completed the survey online, I would recommend that you try and do that. It only takes a few minutes. I did include the link there for you as well. Probably 8 to 10 minutes maximum. I think they've had a pretty good response so far, and I've heard a number of articles on CBC and other places talking about the importance of students learning some of these life skills. So it will be nice to see that feedback on that. And the Eastern Regional Ontario Public School Board Association, I'm taking Carthy's thunder here today, but it is set for Saturday, October the 19th in Belleville, starting at 9:30. So this is really the only opportunity that all trustees in the region have a chance to get together. We do meet twice a year, as well as at PES, if you happen to be at Public Education Symposium. But it's always interesting to go to another board. We usually have a little bit of a tour of what's happening in that school. We're going to have some professional development as well. We haven't got the agenda firmed right up yet, but we will be sending that out pretty soon. But it's October the 19th in Belleville. So it's a bit of a run, but I'm hoping that some of you will be able to go. And then finally, I just wanted to acknowledge, and I know we did a tribute to Ms. Jody at our committee meetings early in September, but just to acknowledge that we did lose a very valued principal at the end of August, and I think most of you are well aware of that. And just to remind us, thinking about sunflowers, because it certainly did, it will remind us of Jody for sure. And if you look up what sunflowers bring, it's joy and positivity, symbolizing strength, good fortune, admiration, and loyalty. And those things certainly were reflected in Jody's time with us. So our sincere condolences and sharing that loss with Jody's family and friends. Student trustees, I believe we're going to hear from Student Trustee Ding and perhaps Student Trustee Doherty as well. So can I turn it over to you two, please?
Sure. So we really hope that everyone's having a really wonderful back to school season. We know it's obviously stressful with transportation, but we know that it's getting off to a really great start this year. So we're glad to see that. Over this past summer, Sydney and I have been busy planning agendas and possible pillars, as mentioned earlier, for our first Student Senate meeting, which will be on October 17th. In my own role, I used the summer to work on a mental health initiative, which will benefit students at our school board in helping them access mental health resources and making them more aware of resources that are available to them. I'd really like to thank Ms. Corbin, who is the principal of Tiered Supports and Safe Schools, Lisa Labriviere from the mental health team, and Superintendent Smith for all of their supervision and really amazing guidance on this project. As I enter my last term as a student trustee with the RCDSB, I really plan to focus on mental health and equity initiatives this year. This year, I'm also working on Asta Aiko's leadership team as the Creative Services Coordinator, so I hope to provincially advocate for the needs of our rural students, like those in the RCDSB, on a more provincial level.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Grace. That's great to hear that things are kind of getting underway already. And I look forward to a student senate coming up on is it the 16th of October? 17th of October. So we'll look forward to hearing more about that. And Grace, will you be sharing some of the information about your project at the student senate meeting on the 17th?
I hope so, yes.
Okay, perfect. I'd like to know a little bit more, so that will be good. We'll look forward to that. All right, so I think we're just wrapping up here. We've got a couple of things on correspondence. Sorry. Oh, did you want to add anything, Sydney? I apologize. I should have asked.
So I think Grace did pretty well.
You're okay for now? Well, we'll look forward to hearing from you at the next meeting.
Yes.
We won't put you on the spot too much this time. Okay, just a couple of correspondence things. Just wanted to draw to your attention. They were attached to the package. One was from TDSB to the Ontario College of Teachers. I don't think there was any requirement for us to do any more with that. It was really just an update and information that they were requesting some information or requesting some requirements from the Ontario College of Teachers. The second letter, though, did come to board chairs, and it was really talking about challenging the ministry with regards to Bill 98, which talks about trustee code of conduct, the use of the integrity commissioner, potentially reducing our honorarium, which, you know, is really big anyway. And then the last one was around electronic meetings. So we're sort of 4 areas that they were asking us to perhaps ask our trustee associations to put pressure on. So we could, if you would like, we could certainly put a letter together on behalf of the board asking OPSPA, which would be our trustee association, to continue to work towards pushing back on some of these requirements. I know that OPSPA already is doing some of that, but it doesn't hurt to have more as well. So I just need to get a bit of direction there. If you feel we should do a letter, maybe somebody would like to make a motion on that.
I will make a motion.
Make a motion. Okay. Do I have a seconder on putting a letter together? Kim? Okay. Thank you. All those in favor of putting something together to ask OPSPA to continue to push against these things? Okay. Excellent. Thank you for that. Out. All in favor? Good. Thanks. I forgot about that part. There was also an article on the Skilled Trades Career Fairs, and again, it was just as an information piece for you. And there was one more letter that came in, and I think I mentioned it at the beginning. I just have to find it. That came in yesterday to both Kristen and I, just reminding us that Rowan's Law Day falls on the last Wednesday of September. And you will remember that this is helping to educate athletes and their families and friends, coaches, and sport leaders on how to prevent injury, recognize the signs of concussion, and knowing what to do when that happens. So it's just reminding us that is happening as well. And of course, we did have a flag raising yesterday. This is a very important week as well, National Week of Truth and Reconciliation, which began yesterday. And I see Christina has her orange shirt on.
Yes.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Very nice. And of course, Orange Shirt Day is next Monday. I know that at our OPSPA Board of Directors meeting, we're wearing orange shirts on Friday. So
Nice.
we'll be looking at that. And I believe that brings us to the end. Trustee Kaiser or Trustee Dean, did you have anything else to add to the good of the meeting? Thank you for joining us virtually. We're glad to have you any way we can. We appreciate that. And I think with that, I will declare this meeting adjourned. How will that be? Thank you, everybody. And we'll see you in 2 weeks, if not before. Thank you. Okay.